Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. As a servant to the people of Queensland, I rise in the House today for a most pressing and important issue, the threat posed to this great nation by the Australian Greens. Our great country has never faced a greater challenge to its sustainability, prosperity, health and well-being than the policies and core platform proposed by the Australian Greens agenda. So terrible are these policies that my humble view is that we must urgently as a nation turn our attention to the details of the policy that are proposed by this political outfit. Recently, I have written to fellow Queensland Senator Larissa Waters, the Greens co-deputy leader, spokesperson for environment and biodiversity, mining and resources, and asked her to debate matters affecting Queenslanders and Australians. Twice, and no answer twice. Twice before publicly in the last 6 years I've challenged her to a debate, and twice she has refused. We have much to debate, Senator Waters. Queensland and Australia need you and your party to articulate your policies and explain why you are really anti-environment, anti-Australian, anti-jobs and pro-poverty. The topics we need an honest explanation from you include bread and butter issues that are being talked about around kitchen tables across Australia and Queensland. We need a few explains, and I have a few explains. So let's look at the issues that you must explain. Firstly, Senator Waters, how do you reconcile the failed renewable energy policies that have cost jobs and increased the costs of energy for Australia's poorest citizens? Note that these renewable energy prices have dramatically raised electricity prices, creating directly unemployment. And nowhere is this more obvious than in South Australia, a state crippled in its manufacturing. Secondly, energy security. At night, in a storm, when the wind farms and the wind generators and wind turbines are turned off because they can't handle the wind, and there's no solar energy, South Australia is stuck with no energy. So energy security is at stake. And then there's electricity reliability. There's a huge variability in electricity generation from wind farms, and these contribute to destabilising electricity generation circuits and distribution circuits. Renewable energies are a recipe for disaster in Australia, and you are pushing them yet more. Secondly, please explain how you could possibly oppose the Adani Carmichael mine and why you hate Aussie workers and job creation for central Queensland. The Adani mine will create thousands of jobs, and that is very humanitarian in its approach. Secondly, it will alleviate poverty globally. It's necessary to have cheap energy to drive electricity that is accessible to all people around the world, and coal is the first step in doing that. And India is the dramatic example of what is happening in the country over there with the provision of cheaper electricity. So thirdly, in terms of opposing the Carmichael mine, the mine stands to improve the environment globally, because not only is carbon dioxide of no harm to the climate and the environment, it is a benefit to the climate, but secondly, with cheap energy, Indians will be able to focus on developing productivity, and with productivity comes prosperity, and with prosperity comes protection of the environment. That has happened in the West. It must happen in India to protect the Indian environment and other environments in other poorer countries. Thirdly, what empirical evidence do the Greens have that humans are causing climate change by the use of hydrocarbon fuels such as coal, oil and natural gas? The Greens need to prove 4 simple steps before they can claim their nonsense about humans causing climate change. The very first thing the Greens must do is to demonstrate with empirical evidence, that's measured data, physical observations, that temperatures are rising, are continuing to rise, and they're doing so unusually and will continue to rise. The empirical evidence shows that there is nothing unusual occurring in temperature, nothing unusual at all. The empirical evidence shows that the same applies to rainfall, snowfall, droughts, both in frequency and severity, floods, both in frequency and severity, cyclones, storms, both in frequency and severity. There is nothing unusual occurring in our temperature. The world's longest climate ground-based temperature record reveals, that's the Central England temperature record, reveals that from 1650s through to today, we have just had normal natural warming, cooling, and there is nothing unusual about the latest warming that ended 21 years ago, and that we have had nothing but a hiatus, a flat of temperature in the last 21 years. So there's no temperature. But the second thing, if there was a rise in temperature, then the second thing is that they would need to prove that carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere drive the temperature. The fact is, the empirical evidence shows that the temperature changes drive the changes in carbon dioxide levels. The third thing that they would... So that is also contradicting the Greens' position. The third thing they would need to prove, if temperatures are rising and if carbon dioxide was causing it, that our production of carbon dioxide from humans does drive the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the fact is, the empirical data shows, the measurements show, that the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is completely determined by nature and is independent of human activity. So there's no way that we can affect the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The carbon dioxide is in fact a product of the changes in temperature, and the temperatures themselves are not changing. But the fourth thing, even if all of those things were in a row for the Greens, the fourth thing is that they would need to prove that any warming is detrimental. And the fact remains, the empirical evidence shows that temperatures in the past have been far warmer, and in those periods of warmth, they have generated important benefits to the environment and to humanity. Warming is not detrimental, it is highly beneficial. So the fourth thing I ask the Greens, if you can't produce the empirical evidence, and you can't, why is it that you have a suite of policies that cause damage to humanity and destroy our precious natural environment? For example, you're advocating a renewable energy target of around 90 to 100%. The renewable energy targets of 20% are driving this country bankrupt. Secondly, you oppose hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity is the cheapest form of energy that will liberate people from poverty. You oppose coal mining, which is the second cheapest form of electricity source, and that is also, your opposition there is hurting humanity. The third thing is you want to levy a carbon dioxide tax, which is hurting the poor. The poor are highly vulnerable to the cost of energy, and that becomes a highly regressive tax on people who are not able to afford it. Fifth point, we have not yet heard from the Greens as to why they are anti-worker and constantly call for the massive and regressive raise in tax on average Australians. Their anti-worker policies kill jobs. Their anti-worker policies stop the creation of new jobs. Their anti-environmental policies stop human progress. Their anti-Australian policies sell us out to global governance. That is a legacy from that advocated by Bob Brown, their former leader. So this is a direct offer to Senator Waters. Stop hiding, Senator Waters, I'm sorry. Stop hiding.
Senator Roberts, I would just encourage you to direct your comments through the chair.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President. So, Mr. Acting Deputy President, this is a direct offer to Senator Waters for her to stop hiding and to join us for a debate. At the very least, have the courtesy to reply to our offer and to tell us why, on behalf of Queenslanders, you won't debate issues of national importance. You need to explain to us why we think you are too important to debate, why you think you are above the Australian people, why you hold everyday Australians in contempt, and why you stop one of the largest and most beneficial projects to our country.
Senator Roberts, I will just remind you one more time to please direct your comments through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President.
Senator Waters.
I thought I'd cover that by doing it once, but I'm new to this. Thank you. The Greens' agenda, Mr. Acting Deputy President, is blindly accepted by some media and warmly embraced by the Labor Party since the 1980s. Listening to the government benches, we wouldn't be surprised to learn that there are Greens Party memberships in many of their wallets. We need, Mr. Acting Deputy President, the Greens agenda out of the way to get Australia back on track. We need it gone, so everyday Australians can finally reduce cost of living, and so we can start to protect our environment and our economy can reach its full potential. Mr. Acting Deputy President, through you, I would urge Senator Waters to accept my challenge, come out of hiding and have the courage and the dignity and the honesty to debate me publicly. Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President.